Peace of mind is being at home with my children. And even though it's not very peaceful, it gives me peace of mind. Being in the kitchen and cooking with them is some of our best memories, are being around the kitchen island and we're all in there. I've got three children and we're all in there cooking, cutting vegetables and things like that, and just spending time together. That's what brings me peace of mind.
Welcome to the Verdict Signal podcast, where we feature how top attorneys help people make informed choices, avoid common mistakes, and move forward with confidence. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Verdict Signal, and today we're expanding our conversations to the experts who protect what people build, their careers, families, and businesses. I have Melissa Gott, the founder of the Law Group, who has been in private practice since 2003. Her practice focuses on transactional work, revenge porn cases, and complex family law cases. Melissa attended UNC Chapel for her undergraduate and Campbell University for her MBA and law degree. She's a certified mediator, parenting coordinator, and collaborative attorney. She has been nationally recognized for her legal work and is consistently ranked in the top 1% of attorneys. So Melissa, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning, Melissa. What first got you interested in the legal field?
Well, at first, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. When I went to university, I was kind of undecided, and I took a couple of paralegal classes and absolutely loved the paralegal curriculum. And so that developed my passion for the legal work, started working as a paralegal for many years, saved up my money, and decided I wanted to go to law school. So that's when I went to Chapel Hill and then later to Campbell. And then when I came out of law school, I decided to start my own law firm in North Carolina.
Okay. And what made you decide to get into family law? Was that kind of something you kind of knew from the beginning you wanted to do, or was it a bit of a journey to get you to where you are now?
Well, a couple of different reasons, but the primary reason was that I had done family law as a paralegal. So I knew that particular practice area. Also, I was very passionate with adoptions. You know, many times as lawyers, we're dealing with people on the worst day of their lives. They're not coming to see a lawyer, for happy things. It's usually, I've been arrested or my house is being foreclosed. And so I really liked what I termed happy law, like adoptions, real estate closings, and things like that. So I got attracted to family law that way, was through adoptions. And as I became more and more skilled with family law, I started to becoming attracted to very high conflict, complex divorce cases with parental alienation. So my practice area kind of shifted just a little bit. And so I went into the more complex areas of family law, like child custody and equitable distribution.
Okay. And what's one thing that you really wish more people understood about working with an attorney such as yourself?
Tell us the truth. It doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what secrets you have, go ahead and tell us, because there are many things we can do to anticipate those issues coming out, either on the stand or through discovery, and we can protect our client. The hardest thing is when the very first time I'm hearing about something is when the client's on the stand, and now I have to clean up a mess. So as long as I know what the problem is, just tell me the truth, and I can help walk you through just about anything.
Okay, I guess this kind of ties into the whole concept that when you are talking to a lawyer and you're bringing them on to represent you, you're their advocate. So as I think some people have some reservation of, I don't want to tell the lawyer this because then maybe they're the upholders of the law, so maybe I'll get in trouble or something along those lines. But really, like, you are their advocate and you are representing them to the best of your knowledge of their situation. Is that correct?
Exactly. And there are very few things that I have not heard before. And many times clients will say, oh my goodness, I really don't want to tell you this because, I'm really ashamed. I'm like, listen, there's nothing that I probably have not heard before. And the only thing that a client should not tell me that they're going to do is a future crime. If the crime has already been committed in the past, I'm bound by attorney client confidentiality, and I can't disclose that to anybody, even the police. So trust your attorney. Your attorney, like you said, is your advocate. If we know what's going on, we're going to be able to protect you.
Okay, very well said in that sense then. Okay, now Melissa, I want to start diving into some of the things that you really specialize in. And I want to start off with revenge porn, which I think maybe some people have maybe heard about, but it seems like it's not it's not something that is kind of really widely known, at least in the legal industry. So could you explain what is revenge porn, and how was it something that you decided to get into and start representing?
Sure. Many people will have also heard it referred to as like sextortion cases or digital harm cases. It's when somebody is using your private images, those intimate images that you have either shared with somebody or that you have in your own possession, and they're sharing it with third parties without your permission. And so we see this happen many times with teenagers where they're being extorted for money, and that's where the sextortion comes from. Or we see it in family law cases where one spouse or an ex-partner is using private, intimate images and using those to publish on websites, to sell them to websites. And so the law now is very much protective of those victims. Where we live in our state, there's actually a statute that provides for criminal and civil remedies. And we're actually coming up on the 2-year anniversary where our client was awarded more than $30 million in a revenge porn case. And it was because there were so many images that were published across Instagram and Reddit. And so she's a very resilient young lady. She was at university at the time, but she is now going to law school, and she wants to specialize in digital harm and these sorts of cases to be able to protect others in the future.
Okay. So I think since this is it sounds like it's a relatively new area of law, what can be some things people can just be aware of? Like, what are some tips you can give to people to kind of be careful, be aware? I'm sure one would be like, just don't share images of yourself. But I mean, are there any like kind of tips that people should really keep in mind for things like this to try and avoid a situation like this?
Yes, exactly what you said. First of all, don't ever share intimate images like that. However, that is not always the only, that doesn't always protect you, because nowadays our statute here in our state actually provides for protections against AI generated images. And that's where we're seeing the field going, is that somebody's head is taken and put on a form, and generally a form that doesn't have clothes on, performing acts. That in and of itself is deemed to be harm as well and is subject to criminal and civil penalties. So it's just no longer it's just don't share your images. You've got to be so protective over anything. So yes, if your intimate images or any other AI generated image is shared, very first thing, report it to the police. The police have wonderful resources now. Most police departments can either refer you to somebody in their particular department or to a larger police department that has a digital and forensic department that actually goes out, seizes the electronics, and they can subpoena the records from big companies such as Reddit and Instagram. An attorney is very much limited how much we can actually get from these large social media corporations. But the police have very much, superpowers. So they're able to get that evidence, preserve the evidence, and then be able to criminally prosecute in order to protect the victim. Now, on the civil side of it, that's where you have to hire a private attorney. And in our state, the statute of limitations is only 1 year. So that's 1 year from discovery. So let's say somebody found, this time last year, images, and they come and see me tomorrow. The statute of limitations has already run. And we recently had a case like that. It was a fantastic case as far as the amount of damages, but we weren't able to help the young lady because she had passed that statute of limitations. So get to an attorney as soon as possible on the civil side. And also save all the evidence. If you see the images, if somebody else sees the images, take those screen snapshots, preserve your evidence. And because that's what the police and that's what your attorney is going to need as well.
Okay. Now, let's say that someone is facing a situation like this where they're the victim of revenge porn or sextortion or anything along those lines. I'm sure that when they first find this out, it's probably in a state of shock is the first thing they're going through. But what are some smart steps that they can first take? You talked about taking a snapshot of their screen if they see it, and then trying to reach out to an attorney as soon as possible so they don't surpass that statute of limitations. But what are some other kind of smart first steps they can take if they're experiencing this for the first time?
Sure. Obviously, contact somebody you trust as well. If you have a support system, like as a family member, this is trauma. You're a victim in this particular circumstance. And we have many young people who don't understand that AI generated image is victimizing them as well. So if you have a trusted source, counselors at schools are very good, family members, your religious organization that you participate with, all those sorts of people are there to support you. But again, the primary thing is get to the police and get to an attorney as soon as possible. But those first few days, that may not be exactly where you want to go. Get to people who are going to be able to give you that comfort and that safety.
Okay. And when it comes to the AI portion of it, I believe that right now there's a situation that Elon Musk and I guess Grok is going through when it comes to the legislation, as far as the legislation wants to hold the company responsible for any images created, where it seems like Elon Musk and Grok say that, well, it should be the person using the system should be the one held accountable. So since this is kind of up in the air, in your professional opinion, where do you think that the law is probably going to end up landing? Is it going to be kind of holding the company, the AI companies, responsible for this, or the actual people using AI to create these images more responsible?
Yes, I definitely think the law is going to go with the latter, that they're going to hold the perpetrator, the actual creator of the content, responsible for that. That's the way the statutes right now are currently worded. There is nothing in there that holds a third party responsible for AI generated images. It is the actual perpetrator that is actually held responsible, not the corporations on whose either media, social media that you're using, or if you're using a particular AI platform. They are not the ones that are responsible for the content that's generated.
Okay. And so now when it comes to the currently with the perpetrator, is it something that if charges are brought against them, is it strictly from a civil penalty, like they're going to be charged money for what they did, or could there also be criminal, like jail time, things along those lines, if they're convicted?
Yes, it's both. So they can be charged criminally. So there are criminal penalties. And in most states, it's a low level felony for the first offense. So in most cases, those get pled down to misdemeanors, but it's still classified as a felony. That's the reason why it's so important to get the police involved early in the process, because then they are able to seize that evidence, give it to your local prosecutor, the district attorney's office, who is then able to take out the criminal charges. Then conversely, you contact your private attorney for the civil lawsuit. And on that civil lawsuit, that's where you're able to collect the monetary damages against the perpetrator.
Okay. Now, when it comes to this type of law, since it is still relatively new, I'm sure there's a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions. People may not know exactly what goes into it. So what are some of the most common myths and misconceptions you hear when it comes to revenge porn, sextortion? I think you mentioned digital harm. Like, what's the most common misconceptions and myths you hear?
Number one is that it's my fault. And it's never the victim's fault. It wasn't your fault that either somebody obtained your images improperly or you shared them. So many times when you're in a relationship, husband and wife or partners, you may share intimate images with yourself, with each other. But those intimate images you only shared with each other. You didn't share with the whole world. So you're a victim in this circumstance. Same thing with AI. Many people say, well, it's just an AI image. It really wasn't me. No, you're still a victim in this particular circumstance, and you deserve to get help either through the police or through the civil court system.
Okay. I think it's great to know, because I think it's relatively new. So I think people just don't understand what goes into the legal side of it. How can they protect themselves? And I'm sure if when they first find this out, they're going through a whirlwind of emotions and mentally they're probably not in a good space. So knowing what to do next steps is always very helpful. So, okay, now I want to move off to a different topic that you also specialize in, which is parental alienation. Could you explain what that is for people who have no idea what that terminology means?
Sure, no problem. So parental alienation is where one parent manipulates a child to actually reject the other parent without any legitimate reason. So most of the time we see this in circumstances where there's two loving parents, everything is going fine, but then all of a sudden you see one parent starting to manipulate that child and start telling that child a story that's not true about the other parent. And in the past, we saw cases like this and we would just classify them as high conflict cases. And over the years, like for the first decade I practiced, we maybe saw 2, 3 of these cases. And in those cases, we would get a parenting coordinator appointed, which is kind of like a mediator between the parents. But over the past about 2 years, we've seen this drastic rise in these sorts of cases. It's like an epidemic. And talking with other practitioners, they're seeing it as now. They're seeing it a rise in cases as well. So in our office right now, we actually have several of these cases. But the good news is our judges are slowly starting to understand and slowly starting to catch on. And within the past 2 months, we just actually got custody totally flipped. Mother was alienating the father from the children. And because of that pattern of alienation, the judge actually changed custody. But again, the judicial system is on a very slow learning curve. Most cases, when you file, it takes weeks in order to get into court, sometimes even months, 6 months to a year. And parental alienation, the professionals have shown that it can happen as quickly as 30 days. So by the time you're in court, the alienation has already occurred. And even if you were to ask the child is going to say, no, I don't want to go with that other parent. But there's no legitimate reason.
Okay. So then in cases like that where, I guess, how would that be proven? Because it seems like unless it's like kind of written somewhere or recorded, it'd be hard because you have to kind of rely on the child. And then because the child is being fed this misinformation, the child at that point is like, well, no, like my mom or my dad didn't tell me that because they want to stay with them. So how do you go about trying to prove this?
Sure. There are several different things we've seen consistently, and the research has showed there are certain signs that the children will start exhibiting. You'll see self-esteem issues, you'll see mental health issues, anxiety, depression. You'll even see a lot of suicidal children or have suicidal ideations. You'll see substance abuse with the children. They'll actually start using alcohol. They'll have school difficulties. They'll start engaging in criminal activity. So they're seeking an attention from inappropriate sources. And it's all because they're having one of their parents ripped away from them. And the way we start seeing this, you start just watching patterns. So you see where one parent is booking things on Father's or Mother's Day. There's no legitimate reason to do that. Or scheduling what I would consider like fun things, fun trips during the other parent's time. Not sharing medical information and medications, not telling the other parent about what's happening at school, blocking the parent from contacting the child. So we start seeing this pattern that's occurring. You'll also see the alienating parent start reshaping or spinning the narrative. So let's say the child goes and spends time, it's a week on, week off custody schedule. They spend time with dad one week, they spend time with mom the other week. And when the child is with dad, everything goes well. There's no conflict, loving dad, supportive dad, everything's going well. But when they come back to the mom will start changing the narrative. Oh, we really missed you while you were gone, which in and of itself doesn't sound like anything that's negative, but they start putting the child in between the two parents. I missed you so much. The house was empty without you. Your siblings missed you. Your stepdad missed you. We did so many fun things while you were gone. So it's starting to reinforce with the child that if they're choosing to go with dad and spend time with dad, then they're causing pain to those over at the mom's house. And so these long-term effects that we end up seeing with the children is that, abused children abuse. They end up with dysfunctional family histories and poor relationships. And so in court, where we get these nebulous accusations that the child feels unsafe, anxious, I'm protecting the mental health of my child. You really have to push in on that. So if the alienating parent is saying, the child doesn't want to go, and you say, well, what is the proof that the child doesn't want to go? Well, the child cries every time we have an exchange, a transition between the houses. Well, crying in and of itself isn't proof that there were problems at dad's house. It may be that the child is crying because they're anticipating the suffering that they're getting ready to go through, or the interrogation they're getting ready to go through going to the alienating parent's house. Or the alienating parent will say, well, the child is old enough to decide where they want to go, or I can't force him to go. Yes, you can. You're the parent in this situation. We force our children every day to do other aspects in life, like brush their teeth and, stop gaming all day long or do your homework, stop taking money from my purse, that sort of thing. So we tell our children all the time, no, you can't do that, or yes, you must do this. So again, it's all about ferreting out those sorts of circumstances and then pointing it out to the court that there actually is a legitimate parental alienation going on.
Okay. Now, in these situations, I'm assuming that they only happen in divorce cases, or are there situations where it could also be they're together, but this parental alienation is still happening?
Correct. It can happen in multiple different relationships because the parents may not have been married. We've even had a couple of cases where it was grandparents who were doing the alienating of the child. So it's not strictly between the parents. The reason why I end up dealing a lot with it in family court is because I'm actually dealing with the parents in a child custody case.
Mhm.
And so we have seen this very steep rise in these cases. And parents need to be aware of this and they need to be able to do something quickly about it. So we always tell our clients, first of all, don't ever miss visitation with your child. Even if the child doesn't want to come and is making up excuses, don't skip your visitation. And if the alienating parent blocks the visitation, they need to file in court immediately because, like I mentioned earlier, the alienation occurs so quickly. So if you're waiting weeks and weeks or months in order to file, your child has now already been alienated from you. We also tell our clients get a counselor involved as soon as possible that's experienced in alienation and is experienced in reunification. Because if a child has been alienated, we need a professional to be able to testify in court and advocate for that child. But then we also need that counselor to help repair the relationship. And we also encourage our parent, keep in contact with your child. Even if the other parent is trying to block you with visitation and things like that, keep that regular contact with calls and texts. And I mean, nowadays we have wonderful iPhones where you can FaceTime children. So we always encourage our clients to keep in contact with the children, even when they're not able to exercise visitation.
Okay. Now, you kind of gave some ideas as far as what people should be doing and some mistakes to avoid, but are there any kind of big mistakes you see people make before they call a lawyer when they're going through parental alienation?
Yes, the number one mistake is trying to be accommodating of the alienating parent. Saying, okay, no problem, I won't take the children this week, or I won't come to their birthday party, or I'll skip the basketball game. What you have done there at that point is you have basically confirmed what the alienating parent is saying about you. The alienating parent is telling the child, your dad really doesn't love you. And then if the dad doesn't show up for the volleyball game, what does that alienating parent say? Oh, see, your dad doesn't even care about coming to your games. So that's the reason why we always tell our parents, do not stop attending. Don't stop participating. Be involved as much as possible. And then preserving that evidence. So if they're getting text messages from the other parent saying the child doesn't want to come, preserve that evidence. We always talk about like a custody timeline. Make a timeline. I tried to contact my child on Monday and didn't hear back from them until Friday. Or I tried to schedule visitation with the mom on Tuesday, didn't hear back for 2 weeks. So keeping that timeline so that when you're in court, you're not just speculating and saying, she doesn't respond. You can say, here's an example where I didn't get a response from the other parent.
Mhm. Okay. So now let's say that someone's looking for help in this. They've never worked with a lawyer before. This is all new for them. What advice would you give to this person as they're doing their search to find a lawyer who can help them, but doesn't know which one to choose? What should they be looking out for?
Yes, that's a very great question. It's very challenging because many attorneys, like I mentioned earlier, many judges don't know about this. Well, many attorneys don't know about this. It's only been recent that it's kind of been dumped in our laps, and we have kind of had to learn on the fly, speaking with professionals in the area so that we as attorneys, when we're speaking with a client, can identify it early. So when you're looking for an attorney, you need to find somebody who's very familiar with alienation. So you can check their websites, check their blogs, check their social media to see if they're providing tips. When you go to interview the attorney to see if they're going to be a good fit for you, ask if they have a referral for a counselor. Ask them how many cases that they have handled with alienation. Ask them what this particular judge is going to do in a circumstance. Because we have judges that lean one way or another, and we have certain judges that are very discerning in these cases, and certain judges that are not very discerning in these cases. So you need to have an attorney who is familiar with not only the court system, the counseling system, but also how the law treats these particular alienation cases.
Okay. And when you're working with clients in this type of law, how do you set the proper expectations so that your clients feel informed and supported throughout the process? Because I'm sure when they're going through this, it's probably a first time. They're not quite sure what to expect. They're not quite sure what to do. So how do you set those proper expectations for them?
Yes, and this area of the law is particularly challenging because, especially where you have older children, if you're dealing with teenagers who have been alienated, the likelihood of reunification is very, very small. And the reason why is because in most states, by the time a child reaches 13, 14 years of age, they're permitted to speak with the judge. And the child, because they've been alienated. Remember, they have been living in this cult-like setting. We always think about, these children not as victims. We think of them as children, but think about it if as adults, we get sometimes swept into cults. You see that all the time. A child is actually living in this cult-like relationship with their parent who's providing them with their food, their shelter, that sort of thing. So they're completely alienated from the other parent. So trying to get that child to express an interest to go back and see the dad or the mom that they haven't seen in 6 months or a year, it's nearly impossible. So setting those realistic expectations for the older children. For the younger children, in the two cases I referenced earlier today, these were younger children. So they weren't able to speak with the court, and the judge on their own volition actually made the change in custody. So when the children are younger, the expectations there are that we are hopeful that the judge will flip custody and also order that the children be in counseling, that reunification therapy, and that the alienating parent be sent to counseling as well. Because the alienating parent, we are generally dealing with narcissistic tendencies there. That parent is thriving and relishing off hurting the other parent. So that parent needs to be rehabilitated as well. I also have conversations with people who come in, and if I'm sitting across and I can tell that they are the alienating parent, I start asking certain questions to be able to elicit from them maybe they need to start making some changes. So setting realistic expectations there as well. So if I'm dealing with the alienating parent, the mom is sitting there and she was like, yes, I'm doing this to protect the children. I'm worried about their anxiety. The dad doesn't put their interests first. And it's just all these real nebulous accusations. I'll start asking them specific questions to hopefully lead them down the path to realize you're the problem in this situation and that the dad's motion is probably going to be granted. And I'll start asking, specifically in the past 6 months, have you told your children that the schedule is not optional, that you are going to go and see the other parent? Do you have the children packed and ready for the exchanges? Are you speaking respectfully of the other parent? Are you correcting your child when they speak disrespectfully of the other parent? Are you sharing the school and the medical records, telling them about extracurriculars and things like that? And you're making sure no activities are scheduled on the other parent's time. So I'm trying to coach those particular clients into acting better and trying to co-parent better, because that's obviously the goal here. We want the children to be in a relationship between the two parents where they're actually able to co-parent and do what is best for the children.
Okay. And when it comes to the future for parental alienation law, where do you think the future is going for this?
Well, I'm very hopeful. We have reached out to the judges conference here in our state so that we can try to educate the judges so that they know what we're actually talking about when we get into court. No longer will we have to educate the judges what parental alienation is. We can just say it in court. prove the evidence, and we don't have to educate the judges. Second of all, there's been a panel of attorneys that have been discussing unique ways in order to handle these cases on a very rapid basis. So I mentioned earlier, court system is not set up to handle like a rapid response sort of thing. And these cases rarely rise to the level where you can get like an emergency custody order to change anything. So discussion has been had about making like a mini emergency family court. So it's very much a situation where the mother has refused to allow the dad to have visitation last weekend. The dad on Monday can go to this little court and immediately file for contempt and immediately get heard, immediately, like within the next week or so. So it's not a full-blown custody trial or anything like that. It's just a yes, somebody violated the order, or no, somebody didn't violate the order. And if people are familiar with it, it's akin to like a parenting coordinator, where somebody will actually sit down with the two parents and say, you know, Dad, you're doing this wrong. Mom, you're doing this wrong. This is how you correct it. And so looking for those ways to be innovative, to be able to address these situations as quickly as possible, and the parties can do it without having to hire an attorney, which is many times prohibitive, cost prohibitive. So it allows the parties to be able to get quick access to court, to be able to get a remedy in a situation like this. So we're hopeful things will start moving that direction.
Okay. Well, thank you for shedding light on these subjects I think a lot of people are not aware of or never even heard about in some situations. So, Melissa, I do have one last question for you. Before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at lawgroupnc.com. Now, last question is, what does peace of mind mean to you?
Oh, goodness. Peace of mind is being at home with my children. And even though it's not very peaceful, it gives me peace of mind. Being in the kitchen and cooking with them is some of our best memories, are being around the kitchen island, and we're all in there. I've got 3 children, and we're all in there cooking, cutting vegetables and things like that, and just spending time together. That's what brings me peace of mind.
Okay, well, there you have it. Melissa sharing her expertise. So, Melissa, where can people contact you and your practice?
Thank you so much. Yes, we're in North Carolina. We're the Law Group. We're in downtown Wilmington. Our telephone number is 910-251-6088. And as you pointed out a few moments ago, our website is lawgroupnc.com. We've got great resources on there with our blogs and with our social media. We post regularly providing tips on everything from real estate and revenge porn cases, or tips how to handle alienation cases, tips how to handle your own traffic ticket. So it's a resource for clients. So we would welcome anybody to check that out.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, this was great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for shedding light on these topics. I think a lot of people can definitely get a lot of value out of this, especially since it's a newer area of law. And I think people just don't really know what to do in situations like that if they are facing that. So thank you for shedding that light, and thank you for sharing your message.
Of course. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Verdict Signal podcast. Any questions? Please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.